Hi, I'm Russ Warad, and this is my presentation on my paper. Well, a major focus of my DPT program is looking at how distortions in the historic sola scriptura within the AGC has undermined the denomination's interaction with secular leadership material to the detriment of both the AGC and its ministers. Seeing this dynamic led me to question whether historical reflection would be valuable in the area of the inclusion of women in the ministry context as well. Is there stuff that we've just sort of believed, but the historical context doesn't hold it up? At present, there's no official place for women in the AGC, and really more consideration is given to what is believed that they should not do, or what may be prohibited, such as senior pastor or elder. In particular, however, I'm interested in what we might gain by reflecting on John Wesley and early Methodism, given that Wesley's approach to women was so different, all the while holding to the same sola scriptura. And so for a portion of the paper, I need to do a bit of a discussion back and forth as to whether Wesley truly held to sola scriptura, and a discussion of his quadrilateral. But I really try to hold to the fact that I believe, as he intended the Wesleyan quadrilateral, he never used that term, but those priorities with sola scriptura, they're much more kindred spirits or parallel. And so I want to focus in this paper then on these experiences that he had that are of value. And so given that sola scriptura and the Wesleyan quadrilateral, what were the influences that led Wesley to change his applied theology to be so inclusive of women? And to start to do that, we really have to look at his mother, Susanna Wesley, first, who was considered the mother of Methodism. And Charles Wallace really asserts that her spirituality had three major distinctives that are important to look at. One was her sense of needing to live according to her conscience, and we see her doing this repeatedly, that even against authority, that she felt this need to act in accordance with her conscience. Reason, that she could think things through, and challenged her kids to do the same. And thirdly is experience, that she truly felt that God was present and active and was giving guidance and calling her to do things. And so conscience was really this drive within her to both live out and be obedient to the things that she was concluding by reason, or that she felt God was calling her to do. And so Wesley not only was taught these by his mother, but saw her living these out and really embraced those. And we could see those in his ministry moving forward. In particular, we see it in how it brought about the split with him and the Moravians. Wesley's meetings were heavily experiential, with lots of demonstrative behavior, as well as they included men and women together. Two things that the Moravians were very concerned about, and when they tried to really pull back on both of those, Wesley was adamant that men and women were going to be together and people were going to have these experiences. And so in 1740, he winds up separating from the Moravians. And when John left the Federal Society to establish the Foundry, we see that he kept these meetings as experiential, and that he kept the men and women together on equal footing, referring to them as brothers and sisters, and with women taking leadership roles, many things. And this drew women in, so much so, 47 out of the 50 women leaders that he had when he was with the Moravians came with him into this new movement of Methodism, along with 25 men. And we begin to see this ratio of 2 to 1 in Methodism as women are flocking to it. Paul Chilcote also talks about one of the reasons women flocked to it, because it was a place where they could thrive and grow. And there were kind of three key characteristics there. And again, it's these convictions that we see Wesley gets from his mother still living themselves out. And the convictions were that nobody should be prohibited from obeying their inner calling, that conscience and experience. And two, that as a society, which is church within a church, there was more freedom for the women than they would have had elsewhere. Just like his mother's Bible study in the rectory kitchen, that it gave her freedom that she otherwise wouldn't have. This was incorporated into Methodism as well. And it was a commitment that men and women alike have a soul and a relationship with God and can hear from God and have a call by God that they have to obey. These things, the women came to these things because they could find a place to grow. But what took place in this environment challenged John in return, as he saw women excelling in many ways that he did not fully anticipate, such as the woman Sarah Crosby. Her success continually challenged his presumptions, and over time Wesley went from flat out prohibiting women from preaching on biblical grounds. He moved to concluding that under unusual calling of God or a movement of the Spirit, that the normal rules don't apply, and you take those passages, just move them aside because the Spirit's moving. Well, although I don't believe that many in the AGC would go along with Wesley in dismissing challenging passages on occasional circumstances and movements of the Spirit, I think Wesley still should challenge us to see not only the scripture passages, but to take into consideration or at least value people's experiences and their felt need to live according to their conscience. Then we might focus more on what can be done and how to do it rather than always restricting.